What's up, everybody? Welcome back to the Pack-A-Day Podcast. I'm your host, Andy Herman. You can follow me on Twitter at Andy Herman NFL. You can follow the podcast at Pack-A-Day Podcast. Appreciate you joining me today. Had a bit of a unique, I would say, news day when it comes to the Green Bay Packers on Monday. Obviously, London is a big deal. We heard news on the 2024 NFL Draft. We had some Aaron Rodgers news. So let's jump into all three, and let's start with the fact that the Green Bay Packers will, in fact, be playing in London in 2022. And it's going to be one of their home games, which of course got everyone a little bit riled up on Twitter. But let's start with the good news here, right? The Packers will be playing in London at the Tottenham Hotspur Stadium. And how exciting for those overseas, how exciting for those in London. I have a variety of people that I follow and that follow me that are on Twitter that are from the UK and could not be more excited and ecstatic about this happening. And it's not just in the UK, right? Like people in Europe that can potentially travel to London to see this game and see a Packer game for probably the first time in their lives. How exciting for them. And I know that like Lambeau is sacred, right? And home games at Lambeau Field in Green Bay, Wisconsin, at arguably, the greatest stadium shrine that there is in the world. I get it, right? Nobody wants to see a home game played at anywhere other than Lambeau Field, but I have a really hard time being anything except excited about this. We'll get to the competitive standpoint in just a moment, but Green Bay was due for this, right? They were the last team that didn't travel overseas, and they were bound to have this happen eventually. B, like, this is the perfect time to do it, right? This is the ninth home game, if you will, the first time it's ever been 9 home games for the Packers. So they still keep their normal 8. It'll feel the exact same for season ticket holders, but now there's a 9th home game that's technically going to be held overseas. The other thing here is, yes, this is good for the NFL, but this is good for the Packers as well. Listen, anytime the Packers have an opportunity to expand their influence, it is good for the Packers. The Packers are so ripe and rich with tradition and winning, and just like the entire aura of the Packers franchise is like addicting, right? It's why you're a fan. It's why I'm a fan. Like, it doesn't take much to like go all in and be a Packer fan. And that's why you see and hear about Packer fans all over the world, all over the United States, like just everywhere. It's, there's literally Packers everywhere accounts, right? Like, I've done podcasts like in Brazil and in like, it's just crazy. And the love for this team means, has no boundaries. And the fact that now Green Bay is going to play overseas and give those fans an opportunity to see their favorite team play, or B, the potential to spread and make that fan base even wider and bigger. Again, I have a hard time thinking that's anything except a win. And yes, again, we love seeing games at Lambeau Field, but listen, if for anyone that's like upset and that's in Green Bay or, stateside, whatever, like, you have plenty of opportunities to get to Packer games, regular season, postseason, preseason, training camp, family night. You are chock full of opportunities every year to see the Packers in some capacity in Green Bay, or even on a road game, right? Wherever you want to go, Chicago, Detroit, Minnesota, etc. So there's a plethora of opportunities for fans in the United States to go see the Packers play, see Lambeau Field, etc. These opportunities are very few and far between, and for the first time, fans overseas will have the opportunity to see the Green Bay Packers play somewhere other than the United States. And I think that's a really cool thing, and I think it's a really awesome opportunity for those that are fans, and again, for the Packers to potentially spread the fan base for not only them, but the NFL as well, which of course is huge for the league and huge for the Packers. So as I mentioned, Packers are the last team to play overseas, and yes, it will be a home game. Their 9th home game will be played, because again, for those unfamiliar, 17-game season now. Before it was 8 home, 8 away. Now they alternate where it's 8 home, 9 away. Last year, now it would be 9 home, 8 away this year. But one of those home games will now be overseas. Make no mistake about it. From a competitive standpoint, that is going to be a home game overseas. I don't care who they play. That will be a home game with a Packers crowd filled with green and gold. I am 1,000,000% confident in that. So yes, the travel will be more, but the travel will be more for the team that they're playing as well. And when you play overseas, you get a bye week the following week. So a little bit more jet lag, a little bit more, travel and things like that, which you don't want to see pile up too much on your schedule. However, again, I think from a competitive standpoint, I don't think it's going to matter all that much. yes, you basically have 9 road games last year, this year, and now next year again, where you have to travel a little bit more. And that can, again, add up a little bit over time. But I think ultimately, when you're talking about this being an all-in sort of season, I don't see this as being a super big competitive disadvantage. So yes, it will be something that they have to navigate a little bit, but I think it's going to be more than, they're going to be more than capable of doing that. As far as who they might play, if you haven't had a chance yet, check out Packers Wire. Zach Cruz did a really great breakdown. He kind of looked at everything and sort of surmised that it's the New York Giants that they'll end up playing. I think that makes sense. I think you could see the Jets too, maybe the Titans. I think there's a couple of teams that could play. It's usually not a division game. It's not going to be one of the big primetime marquee games because ESPN, ABC, all Fox, like those teams are going to just eat those games up, right? So I think it's going to be, probably one of the games that, probably AFC, NFC, and I think the Jets or Giants, again, make a lot of sense there for Green Bay. And certainly if it is the Jets or the Giants, I'm sure from New York to London, there will be a fan base from either of those teams as well. But I just think ultimately it's going to be a very huge Packers fan base. I think that's a game that they should win no matter what, regardless of travel, if it is one of those two teams. So again, I have a really tough time thinking this is anything but a positive. And again, Green Bay will have plenty of opportunities to host 9 home games in the future and figure that out down the road. But for now, for this season, they'll have 8 home, 8 away, and technically 1 neutral site game. But again, I really feel like that's going to be a home game for the Packers. So exciting news there. I know, again, some people were bummed out about it on Twitter. I just don't see a massive competitive disadvantage, and I think they're going to be just fine playing overseas. All right, let's go into the next piece of news, because after that news broke, Mark Murphy did an interview with some of the media members, and one of the big news items that he dropped is that the Packers are one of 3 finalists for the 2024 NFL Draft. And the 2 other teams that they're competing against are the Detroit Lions and the Washington Commanders. Of all teams that you could potentially be competing for this, I feel like that's Green Bay's best chance. And I do feel like this is the time for the NFL to sort of throw Green Bay a little bit of a bone, because listen, there's never going to be a Super Bowl in Green Bay. We know that. There's never going to be a Pro Bowl in Green Bay. We know that. Like, you're running out of potential things that could be hosted in Green Bay, right? You're probably not going to host a combine in Green Bay, but you easily could see a scenario where the draft is easily held in Green Bay and surrounding areas, right? And I think that what Green Bay's done with the Titletown District is more than worthy of being included in that type of event. I think they have the space. I think they've built up the entire area just amazingly. And like I said, I think this is one where the NFL sort of owes Green Bay, because they can't give them really any other event. And I do think you may end up in a situation, in a scenario where the draft just continues to grow and gain in more popularity. And if that becomes the case, it could become a point like the Super Bowl, right, where it's just too big of an event to host in Green Bay. And I don't think it's there yet. And I think Green Bay makes a ton of sense to be held in 2024, and would beyond love to see it held in Green Bay. I think it'd be great for the community. I think it'd be great for the economy in Green Bay. I think, again, the NFL is would be wise to hold it in Green Bay. I think it would be tremendously popular. I think the entire town would get into it. I think we'd see a lot, and I mean a lot of visitors from other areas to attend the event. I just think overall it would be be gorgeous. And I know that, like, all right, end of April, early May isn't like prime weather for Green Bay, but it should be nice enough that nobody's going to care or complain either. So would love to see that. And again, you're competing against Detroit and Washington, right? Washington's trying to figure out a new stadium district. Like, I don't know, just Washington does not seem like the right team. They've gone through a bunch of scandals recently. Like, I don't know how the NFL could possibly award the NFL and the Washington and that franchise right now for where they're at. Like, that would be sort of a kick in the face to the Packers. Now, Detroit, again, Detroit is certainly worthy of inclusion there as well. But again, if all of a sudden, it's between Green Bay and Detroit, again, I think Green Bay's earned that a little bit more. The weather's not going to be that much different in Detroit. Yes, you have a little bit more infrastructure, bigger airport, more areas, some things like that. But I just think Green Bay is going to be more than sufficient to hold that type of event, and am all in. And I hope and believe that there's a really good chance that Green Bay could actually win this, but would beyond love to see a draft in Green Bay in 2024. And then last but not least, we heard from Ian Rappaport that the Packers and Aaron Rodgers are talking, or at least Aaron Rodgers, like agents and things like that, are talking about a potential contract. Now, you could say that clearly this means that Rodgers is leaning towards coming back, or at minimum, Green Bay feels very strongly that that's where this is going to head. And I think it's maybe fair to glean that a little bit, but I also think that Green Bay would probably say to Aaron Rodgers, hey, we want to give you as much time to figure this out as you need. However, do you mind if we talk to your representation in the meantime to go over terms of a potential deal in case you do decide to come back? Because if you decide, like, we're going to have to go warp speed to sort of fit everything in and make all of this work before free agency starts and so on and so forth. So I think this very well could be Green Bay just doing their due diligence and saying, we have to be prepared for literally everything, whether that's a trade, whether that's a contract. And we need to talk to your representation before you make this decision to make sure that if you do decide to come back, or even if you decide that you want to be traded, that we can work this out. Because here's the deal, right? Regardless of what Aaron decides, whether it's stay in Green Bay or trade or even retire, I can guarantee you his contract will be changed in some capacity. They will work it out so that, you know, Green Bay doesn't have this massive cap hit quite as much, even if he retires this season, similar to what Drew Brees did in New Orleans. Again, a trade would, you know, precipitate a contract change, and then so would him staying in Green Bay. So regardless of what happens, trade, retire, stay in Green Bay and his, you know, representation has to talk and get through all this stuff. So for Russ Ball and Rodgers' agents and things like that to start working through these things, no matter what Aaron decides. And yeah, it probably makes sense that Green Bay looks at it from a wishful thinking standpoint first. It says, let's figure out that side of things. That makes sense. So if you're a Packer fan hoping that Rodgers is coming back, then yeah, you're probably hoping, all right, this maybe does, you can read into it a little bit, and yeah, he's coming back, right? I don't know that we necessarily know that yet. I still think that all the tea leaves are pointing in that direction. Vegas certainly believes that if you're looking at the odds of his return to Green Bay. If you don't think he's going to return to Green Bay, go make that bet right now, because I think last I checked, it was like negative 450 for Rodgers to return. So again, things seem to be trending in that direction. Nothing would shock me. Like I said, all offseason, going back to last year, this could still ebb and flow in a variety of different ways. Hey, and maybe it's a Pat McAfee Tuesday, right? Maybe we get a indication or a final decision today as you're listening to this. Maybe it's already been made. Like, that's where we're at in this process. Maybe he takes more time, but clearly good news that the Packers and Rodgers representation are talking to one another. And again, I think that it makes sense regardless, even if Rodgers is a week away from making this decision, to start ironing out some of those finer details just makes way too much sense. So it's near impossible to glean entirely if exactly this means anything or not, but it's hard not to look at it and feel like, all right, it just continues to seem like this is falling in the right way for Aaron to return to Green Bay. That does it for me for Packers news today. Again, all interesting stuff, right? Rodgers contract talks, Packers potentially hosting an NFL draft, Packers going to London this season. The only other thing I want to end up with here is just a message to the MLB, and I know you're not watching, but just be careful. I think a lot of people are already like, oh, do we really, need you all that much? And, you're already getting declines in ratings. And listen, I love going to a Brewer game. I could, it's one of my favorite things to do. I love the Brewers. Baseball's fun, all those sort of things, but we got a lot going on, and football's now year round that we cover it, right? The basketball, NBA continue, like the stars in the NBA right now are just incredible. Like the WNBA continues to get bigger, MLS continues to get bigger. More and more people are watching, Premier League soccer and all the different soccer leagues. Hockey's getting, like, all of these things are continuing to grow. Even things like professional wrestling, right? AEW, specifically WWE, like all of these things are growing. Like, be a little less tone deaf, Major League Baseball, and get a freaking deal done. I will say this, and I'll end on this. The least favorite thing that I enjoy in all of sports is labor negotiations. Like when the NFL is going through it, like I am just praying and praying that stuff gets done quickly and easily and doesn't have this sort of thing that MLB is going through right now. MLB has suffered from strike seasons already, and you would think that they would learn their lesson. And it's just a awful look for the commissioner, who's just awful, beyond awful, and the owners. And Jeff Passan did an amazing article on it. Go check that out. But I'm very thankful that the NFL is not in that situation, that their labor negotiations went relatively quick and easy and well, and that we don't have to worry about a strike or a lockout or anything like that for the foreseeable future. I'm very thankful for that. Thank you so much for joining me. I always appreciate it. I'll be right back here tomorrow. Hey, maybe with some Aaron Rodgers news. Who knows? But until next time, and as always, go Pack Go.